The Canon EOS R10, it's real. It's been added to the latest product list. But what is it? Details coming up, but first I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so you're kept informed on the latest camera gear, news, and rumors like this Canon R10. The Canon R10, as reported by Digicami, is the successor to the Canon 90D. This makes sense. It's like doing a reset on the 90D back to the 10D with the R prefix. After all, they couldn't call it the 100D because that's actually a lesser camera. So, what are the capabilities? Digicami didn't say, but the announcement is supposed to happen soon. And if the R7 is supposed to be the successor to the 7D Mark II, as we've been told, we've certainly got room to do an educated guess. As the R7 is the successor to the 7D Mark II, the R10 the successor to the 90D, we just need to go back in time a little bit and look at the 70D and the 7D Mark II to see how Canon has prioritized the capabilities of each of these cameras. The 70D came out in 2013 for $1199 and the 7D Mark II the following year for $1799. So we can see already that there's a $600 price difference between these two cameras. For video, the 70D was better because it had that flip screen, but otherwise the video specs for both cameras were pretty much identical. But the 7D Mark II had a better ISO range. It had GPS versus Wi-Fi. It had a faster shooting rate, better build for stills, and for wildlife photographers. So to sum up, the 7D had a price of $1799 versus $1199 for the 70D. In terms of ISO range, 12,800 expandable to 51,200 versus 12,800 expandable to 25,600. So better ISO performance. It had dual card slots versus a single card slots, although it didn't have that flippy screen, which to a lot of people wasn't a bigger deal. It did have a better build quality. It did way more. And for those people that still liked APS-C and wanted to stick with APS-C that weren't interested in full frame, the 7D Mark II was considered the flagship camera. And in terms of other capabilities, they both had that new dual pixel autofocus system. They both produced really good results. It was hard to buy the 70D and look at the 7D Mark II with great envy. For a lot of people, the 70D and the 7D were considered, well, the top in terms of Canon, the flagship in terms of Canon's APS-C cameras. So based on the historical separation between the 7D Mark II and the 70D, we can expect the R7 to cost more by about $600 than the R10 and to be better in terms of many capabilities, but not in a way that clobbers the R10, not in a way that the R7 looks as a much better camera, but where they're very similar in many aspects. And the first capability is the sensor. I expect both of these cameras to have a 32.5 megapixel sensor. That makes sense. The 90D had a 32.5. I can't see Canon crippling that and giving it a lower megapixel count. So definitely 32.5. Now in terms of BSI or stacked, the latest rumors confirmed by Canon do not indicate that the R7 is going to get BSI or stacked. So I certainly don't expect the R10 to get BSI or stacked. I do think both cameras are going to get the Digic X processor. That's going to allow them to process a huge amount of information very quickly, which is very important on the R7, being able to shoot at 30 frames per second at 32.5 megapixels. Now the R10, well, I expect it to be able to shoot somewhere around 10 frames per second mechanical or 9 frames per second mechanical up to around 13, 14, or 15 frames electronic. When it comes to video, I expect to see a little bit more of a separation between these two cameras. I don't think that the R10 is going to get Canon Log 3 like the R7. I don't think it's also going to get HDRPQ. I had to look down because yesterday I said HLG. Now in terms of video modes and resolutions, the R7 is going to cap out at 4K 60. There's no mention in the rumors that we got yesterday whether that's going to be oversampled, like 6K oversampled 4K. We can only wonder and wait and see if that is the case. But the R10, I do believe it's going to be able to do 4K 30 for sure, and I think it's going to be a lot sharper than what we saw on the 90D. And that's because with the Digic X processor, it's going to be able to produce a lot more or push a lot more data in transit. And that's going to allow us to have a sharper image. But will it get 60 frames per second? Well, Canon can certainly do that. Now, what they can do with the R10 is give us full sensor readout and give us that 6K oversampled 4K. And then on the R10, just give us 4K 60 and do that normal cropping that you would expect to get. And that would be a huge differentiator between these two cameras. So there will be some slight separation. Now, they could give us Canon Log 3 in the R10, but I just don't really see Canon doing that. In this hobbyist level camera, they've never done anything like that, and that would be a big surprise if they did. But if they didn't, that would be one of the biggest reasons for separating these cameras by about $600. The R7 is getting IBIS, and I certainly think that the R10 should also get IBIS too. In this day and age, coming out with a camera that costs over $1,000 and not putting IBIS in it Well, it just seems like a bit of a slap in the face. Dual card slots, the R7, yes. The R10, no. I think it's going to stick with a single card slot as we saw in the 90D, the 70D, and through that entire double-digit D line. Both cameras are going to have that R3 multi-purpose hot shoe, and I also believe that they're going to share the same ergonomics, the same body style. And in terms of announcement, the R7, as confirmed by Canon rumors, is coming in June or July based on availability of parts and all that kind of stuff that we've heard for a long time. And the R10 is supposed to be announced alongside it. But what else are we getting at the announcement? Well, we're going to get the R7 body as well as the R7 with the 18 to 150 kit. We'll get the R10 body along with the 18 to 150 kit as well as the 18 to 45 kit. And of course, you can buy the lenses separately. They're both designated as the RFS 18 to 45, and it's image stabilized. And the other one is also image stabilized, and that's the RFS 18 to 150. This is supposed to be Fuji's time. We're talking about the HX2S and the HX2. The HX2S is supposed to be announced along at the Fujifilm X Summit on May the 31st in just a couple of weeks. But here Canon is kind of waking up a little bit. We're getting leaked information about the R7, which I suspect is coming right from Canon itself. And now we're starting to hear about the R10, 2 APS-C censored cameras for the R system, as was rumored a while ago. Now, there was a rumor that we're supposed to be getting 3 APS-C censored cameras. And so the 90D successor, the 70 Mark II successor, so the high end, the middle at high end, and of course there's room for an entry level, and we haven't heard anything about that yet, and that doesn't look like it's in the cards anytime soon. If so, maybe late in the year, but I think that's most likely targeted for 2023. And that leaves us with looking to full frame. We haven't heard anything about any full frame cameras going to be announced shortly. So what I think is going to happen in the second part of this year, we're going to finally get the EOS RP Mark II successor, and we'll get another camera that sits between the EOS RP Mark II and the R6. And then, of course, there's the Canon EOS R1. As far as the Canon EOS R1, I don't have any specs right now. I'm actually working on a video looking at the entire 1 series cameras and what we can expect to see in the Canon EOS R1. But according to Canon rumors, what Craig has told us is that we can at least expect some sort of announcement from Canon on the R1, whether it be a full-blown announcement in the final months of 2022, talking about a 2023 release, or maybe we'll just get a development announcement, and that could mean that we would get the R1 sometime in the latter half of the first half of 2023. So it's certainly shaping up to be a very exciting time. And I'm taking today off because there's a lot of news supposed to be coming out. We've got the DJI Mini 3, and who knows what else is going to be coming out. Canon rumors hasn't even covered off the R10 yet, so I'm waiting to see what they cover on the R10 and what they're able to validate and discern from this camera in terms of specifications. What I really suggest you do, if you want to get the latest information on the R10, the R7, the DJI Mini 3, the R1, the Sony a7 R5, I mean, there's a whole list of cameras that we're supposed to be getting announcements on. Go ahead and subscribe, but make sure you choose all notifications. So that way, as soon as I publish a video, you'll get a notification. And so that way, you'll be first to know in all the latest camera gear, news, and rumors. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.